As a result of an analysis of a series of studies, my own and some of other people, we are finding some very exciting things in terms of research with GIM. One of the best documented is the ability of GIM to change depression or depressed mood in healthy adults, in people with medical conditions, and in people with psychiatric illness. And that's been consistent across the board. Every study that's looked at depression or depressed mood has found significant change, even in very small sample sizes where it might be hard to detect. GIM is very, very, very powerful for affecting mood, for changing mood. The other area is, I think, is in physiology, we don't have the consistency, partly because it takes larger numbers, but we are finding the theoretical relationships are being revealed through the GIM process. That GIM can alter particularly neurohormones that are associated with both mood, as in depression, and also with physical illness. So as these are revealed, as these relationships are revealed and are shown through the research literature, it verifies my conviction that there is a mechanism for these physical changes to happen that we see as a result of GIM, and that GIM is very powerful for reaching into the person and helping to effect the change, helping that change to actually happen. In the study of women with breast cancer who had a series of GIM sessions, we found that GIM again was able to decrease depressed mood, consistent with other GIM literature. We also found that there were medium to large effect sizes for several of the neurohormones that are important in breast cancer, and particularly in recurrence of breast cancer and in growth of tumors. So it's some exciting work. It's a very small study, but it does give us the foundation for moving forward into looking again and looking at a next step in terms of research. But I think what we have to do eventually is to have a multi-site study where we have more than one GIM therapist providing sessions. GIM is time intensive. We have more than one possibility of recruitment site with relationships with the physicians who deal with the illnesses that are involved, who can help us to recruit, so that we can gather enough numbers to be heard outside of GIM. Right now we have some very, very interesting findings, but all with very small ends. And eventually we'll need larger numbers. We'll need to have that. When it happens that we have those larger numbers and outsiders begin to notice and demand GIM beyond the small circles of the GIM fellows who are already there, we're going to have more fellows. There will have to be a lot more fellows to handle the demand. GIM is transformational, and when the world learns about it, we need to be ready.
Support the working through of the same issues that the psycho-oncology research identifies as important at this stage. Treatment's over. No one is going to hold your hand anymore. No one is there to tell you what to do every week. The treatments are finished. And so it's what now? We don't know if the disease is finished, if it's going to recur. And a lot of the supports that tend to be there have fallen away. But it's also a very powerful time in the healing process because it's a time for reevaluation of what life is about. What am I going to do with whatever time is here now? And indeed what I found in this study was that GIM brought forth very powerful and rapid work on body image. The body parts that had been removed, the surgeries that had changed the body, the sexuality that had been impacted by this disease and by the treatments, roles that had been changed, redefinition of how you are in your family, how you are in your work and in your life, an examination of values, and a very brave investigation of our own mortality. And that's an issue that people often don't get to until further on in a psychological treatment. These women were grappling with these very important existential issues second or third session into a 6-session series. There were remarkable transformations that occurred in just 6 sessions. We know now that we need a longer series of sessions to find those results cascading through the body systems to the physical outcomes that we're most interested in terms of the stress hormones and immune system outcomes. But what's very exciting about that is that we now have both the physiological quantitative research, and we have, and this is just one of many studies that have looked at quality of life and changes in mood and these other important factors. So we have these different ways of investigating that are providing a very strong foundation for us to go forth.
In my work that I've done with all people, but I think primarily those who've experienced trauma, it's been very evident that music's vibrations and resonance seem to go to a cellular level, where many times emotions are captured and experiences and memories are captured. And in that unfolding and resonating, the experiences come to the surface and can be acknowledged, can be felt. And the beauty of music is that within its structure, within its tension and release, it provides a holding for that process. It provides a way to restructure, to support, to nurture, to actually change those vibrations and allow them, changing the cells through those vibrations, and allow them to return or to move forward to their healthy state or their balanced state or their state of potential. Whereas those memories that are held can inhibit the potential, whether it's psychological or cognitive or physical in terms of illnesses. There's impairment there, there's affliction there, and that moving through the vibrations in the cells can actually potentiate this health and growth. And someone who's experienced a trauma may have a physical experience of that, as well as a psychological and a cognitive experience of that. Often the cognitive piece of it may be suppressed or repressed, and along with the physical, the psychological or the emotional piece of it, through that resonance of the music, maybe it's music that has lots of tension in it, that trauma, whether it was being hit or abused in some way, can be reawakened, and a person can be given a voice in this adult state to speak about and to speak to the abuser. Often that part of the body will be called attention to, and the emotion will come through, and sometimes the cognitive piece of the storyline will come through with the music. In the design of the programs, the music is sequenced so that there is tension in some of the pieces, and there is following that is resolution, or even within the pieces. They're specifically chosen and used to allow that tension to be experienced and then the release to come through that after that. music is built on tension and release in the rhythms, it's built on that in the structure, it's built on that in the melody lines, it's built on that in the harmonies. So there are many opportunities to experience that and to resonate that and then to come to resolution, which is what we say happens in music, that chords resolve, and that there are cadences and there are forms that build and develop and then recapitulate and resolve and come to an end.
So if one brings some intentionality to the deep listening process, a certain amount of inner spark comes alive regardless of why you think you went into the work or went into a series of sessions. So I feel it is some connection with the music and its vibrational potential and what I sometimes call its mystery potential, because music has been there as a vibrational presence for a very long time. And it's there for some reasons other than entertainment, or it just happens to be there, or it's traditional. So I feel that our vibrational connection happens even if we don't know how to talk about it or don't know how to acknowledge it in the moment. It is happening. And I feel that the internalization of some of those vibrations permits a type of process that surprises us. And I feel it is often the surprises that allow the true self to come forward. As I began working with clients, I began also to see similar processes, similar to my own, of their true self starting to emerge. And that remained and still remains for me the strongest part of the work, is seeking that true self, because I think the true self is also seeking to emerge and to be recognized. And I began to be very interested in what creative process was, and everybody had different viewpoints on that. As I read them, I noticed that there were steps in creative process, steps of having some sense that we could tap into greater creativity if we had some help, if we had some focus, if we had a situation of safety, if we had a situation that would permit us freedom of expression. And I certainly thought that guided imagery in music, as we were practicing it, provided a safe situation and freedom of creative expression, and I began to get very much more interested in it. And over the course of many years, with many adventuresome people, we probed that. And what emerged from that was a new series of GIM programs that I'd say I developed or were developed through me, that would allow people to enter the image field perhaps a little bit more, with a little bit more energy, with a little more dynamism, and with a little more intent about finding new perspectives, new visions, new ways to look at things. And I found that for me, that was going to be my contribution, or among them, to the exploration of consciousness, by being able to help people get beyond some of their limitations of imagery or their own opinions, their own self-imposed restrictions. And so the music search went on, and the programs were developed, and people are now using them. And in the use of them, we're finding that surface material that has impeded some of their greater vision has been peeled away quicker, and that they are having many visions of things like the creation of the universe and totally different ways to look at situations, so that their paradigms were shifting about how they viewed things. When I began to see that, then I got, I won't say re-excited, but that's the closest I can come to it. And we're working actively now in the field of paradigm shifts. People who are coming for sessions saying, I realize that something in my thinking needs to shift if the worldview is going to shift. And I know that that was in line with some part of her vision about actually using music to facilitate the greater exploration into all realms of consciousness, so that there could be greater uniformity perhaps, or universality of more potent and more positive visions to promote world change.
Well, what else do you want to say, ma'am?
I do want to say something about something that musicians house within themselves. Those of us who were drawn to music early on as performers, as musicologists, and into this work, I feel that all of us have an inner knowing that music is there for some greater reason. And whether we read the ancient philosophers and get inspired by the fact that they were saying the same thing, or whether we're just discovering it, I find that in this music, this music work, there has been a way for very well musically trained people to get close to what they think music might really be there for. And I enjoy working with some of the people in music who have had some preconceptions, yet when they really get into session work, they say things like, I understand why music drew me. I understand why it draws me now. And I want to continue the exploration with music because it can help me do more than I can do just sitting, wondering, talking, reading. I feel it's an extraordinary part of the work for all people to have some sense of music because it exists in society, in the universe. I feel that for musicians in particular, sometimes we lose track of the greater picture and we need the opportunity to reconnect. So for musicians, I feel it's a reconnection possibility. For people who aren't musicians but yet who have a sense of music, I feel the same possibility is there also.
The Bonny method of guided imagery in music is a very specific method. It is a method that uses music that has been put together in programs. They vary in length from 30 minutes to 45 minutes. The programs are put together for this method as a means of enabling an individual to have an imaging experience with music. So what happens in this technique then is that the person's own imagery is evoked in a sense by the music. The music helps the imagery to move, and the music supports the person while the process is underway. This differs from guided imagery in that with guided imagery, the facilitator will quite often be guiding the imagery, quite often will be suggesting what will be seen or where the person will go within his or her imagination. If music is used, it's used as background. It's used underneath the experience. It's not used as we speak of it sometimes even as a co-therapist. It's that close within the experience, maybe even closer than that. It is central to the method. Whereas in other techniques, the music is, I've heard it referred to as acoustical wallpaper, not intended to be something that the person reacts to, feels emotionally, or anything else. It just simply is like a mattress that the person lies on. So that's a major way in which it differs from other types of guided imagery. Traditionally, the music that's used in guided imagery in music, in the Bonny method of guided imagery in music, comes from the Western classical tradition. And this is music which has lasted through time. It is music that we know people relate to, let into themselves. They hear it. It's in some senses, often it's it's familiar, not common, but familiar music. And the pieces, the programs that we use are put together in such a way that there is a sense of a beginning that draws the person into the experience, and then the music will move towards an active climax of some kind, and then will taper down to a closure. The guided imagery and music process enables a person to have a moment of something extraordinary. In our day-to-day lives, we experience what we experience, our eyes open, our relationships, our work, the health of our bodies. When we enter into the altered state and then begin to listen to music and then allow our own inner world to open to that music, we have really stepped into an extraordinary space. It's something very different. Time is different. Space is different. We may have images of things that we don't have in our ordinary life. We could have a whole experience there that is very real. It's as real as anything that we know. And then we come back from that experience and are in our ordinary life again. But we've touched the extraordinary. And that's one of the things that is really fascinating to me and very special about guided imagery and music. And again, it's because the music has been there to take us into this space and then to bring us back out. It's different than doing an imagery experience without the musical support. That's a different experience. With the music, it's multidimensional. When I think of guided imagery and music, and I think of clients with whom I have worked, and in my own work with trainees that I have had, I know that when people can move out of their mind, their mental constructs, into their space of feeling, which we could think of and talk of as heart, that's where transformation can occur. So I think that guided imagery and music has always had a pathway to the heart, if you will, a pathway that enables emotions to be experienced, faced, integrated, relationships to be understood, and growth to occur. All of that seems to me to be related to the development of our heart as a spiritual organ that is part of the development of our whole being. Guided imagery and music is a transpersonal technique. People will often and easily move into a transpersonal space, a space that moves beyond the sense of their personality. It's in the music. It's there. It's easy to step into that space and move. So I see that is a way in which it becomes a holistic technique. Not only does it touch the emotions and interest the mind, but the spirit is also enabled to develop and to have expression. When I first got to know Helen, I noticed about her very quickly that she was a very adventuring spirit. And she would try things that nobody else was trying. If there was somebody who came to do a demonstration of a technique, it might be past life regression, it could be
shamanic. It could be anything. Helen would volunteer to be the person, like a guinea pig, because she was always interested in what else she could be, how more she could grow. And that enthusiasm, that ability to risk and to grow at her edges is something that she really translates and teaches all of us. And I have appreciated that so much because seeing her do something made me feel like it's safe. I can try that. So I always got from her a sense that there is safety even in exploring these states of consciousness that we may not know. Which is not to say that all explorations are safe, but there was something about how Helen, by teaching us how to use the music, by teaching us how to use imagery, that we could move into those spaces not feeling afraid, but feeling as though there's more to be, there's more to grow into, there's more that we could be. And I think that we see that in her work, not only with guided imagery and music, but then even when she became herself ill and was a hospital patient, that she even found things to do then, that places and ways that she could use music then. And that exploring, pioneering spirit, I think, is one of the things that really attracted me to her, and I'm sure that's true of many others.